Velkommen til Retrotimen, spesielt intervjusegment I dag med meg, Rasmus, og Bob. Bob is a guy I've been following for quite a few years now. So as you just heard, I switched over to English. That's because Bob is living in New York right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't really planned out much structure to this. Also, I'm struggling with the technicalities. I can see my webcam just went super dark right now. But I can't care about that, because this is a podcast after all. Alright, I'm just going to have to introduce myself and what this podcast is, so that you know what the hell you've jumped into, Bob.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a retro podcast, where we usually just talk about what we've been doing lately.
Mm-hmm.
And we usually try a new beer every podcast. And then each week we record one episode, and then we talk about one movie and one game from
Cool.
Usually retro stuff. So that's about it. So I'm not sure, maybe you just talk about what you do. I'll see, I've got a couple of notes here, so I'm gonna steer you in the right direction if there's something you miss.
Yeah, no problem. I'm Bob, the founder of RetroRGB.com, and the website is kind of evolving into a few things. So you can go to the main page to get news on everything that's going on in the retro gaming scene, focused more on the hardware end, but we have a bunch of great writers that talk a lot about new software that's coming out as well. The website at the moment also has a ton of guides on how to get the best out of your retro consoles at pretty much any price. Because that's the thing, when I first started the website, it was just how to get the best out of your console. And I very quickly realized best is subjective, you know. So any budget, anything you need to do, the website should help. And we're also doing a weekly podcast and have a bunch of other videos that go behind it, and are soon switching over to a open source, not-for-profit wiki. So all of the guides will be moved over to that. So this information could be shared and collaborated by everybody. So I guess the short version is I'm aiming to be the hub of retro gaming, and I'm aiming to be a group of people doing this, not just... So like I've never introduced myself as RetroRGB. I'm always Bob from RetroRGB. And we've gotten a ton of really amazing collaborators in the past year, and it seems to be growing. So anybody that needs any kind of retro gaming hardware, definitely check that out.
Yeah, that's pretty much perfect. This is one of the things I really like about you and what you do, is that you always manage to break down really complicated things and make it understandable for everyone. So that's kind of why I just asked you, Bob, explain this. I struggle with English, fix this, and you did.
Yeah, that doesn't come easy. That's a lot of failure before you realize how to explain it. It's a lot of getting it wrong before you eventually get it right.
A couple of years ago, I tried to get this YouTube series off the ground called Tech-ting.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that I was excruciatingly bad at getting the point across and stuff like this. So that's been on the back burner since. Also, that's about the same time as you started kicking the Weekly Roundup into gear.
Oh.
So I just realized, oh, come on, Bob. I'm not going to do it as good as this.
Yeah, that's a problem I still always have, is that, you know, I'm always thinking, I'm always like hyperactive. I probably shouldn't be drinking coffee right now, to be honest, but very often I'll form a complete thought in my head, but what comes out is only a piece of that, and I don't realize it until afterwards, because in my head I could think of everything, which is why it's really easy to write articles, because you could even update those later on. It's easier to do videos because I could do a couple of takes and before I get it right. But anything live, I always end up fumbling and saying the wrong thing. And luckily, people that follow the channel, they usually understand what I'm leaning towards. If there's something that sounds really bad and I'm talking about somebody I like, people are very quick to realize, like, oh, he probably just meant something else. So I'm lucky in that respect, but I'm trying to get better.
Yeah, I've heard you talk to Smoke Monster about that recently.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny. I just recently experienced that myself, where a couple of my pretty close friends kind of took something I said the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
That is really annoying when that happens, because they should know you, right?
Yeah.
And if you don't, then why should I care that you got mad? I didn't mean what you think I meant. Well, I can't really explain that quickly and to the point here, but it's happened a little bit to me lately, though. So don't worry too much about that, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
I've had that happen in the past as well, but in the moment, I thought it was exactly what you said. But in hindsight, I think it was just friends that were so close to me that they were having a rough time and needed an outlet, and they knew that they could unload on me and that I'd forgive them. And that's how you should treat your friends. So while I would never want to be the punching bag, I'm always welcome to if a friend really needs me. So maybe consider that. Maybe your friends were just having a bad time and needed somebody to blame.
Yeah, I'm not about to cut cords with anyone because of something like that. You gotta roll with the punches, and friends are friends, for better or for worse, I guess.
So, may I ask, is this podcast normally in Norwegian?
Yeah. But we've branched out a little bit with in terms of interviews and such. A while back we did an interview, or we had a guest, Steven from who runs Retro Gaming Monthly. I don't know if you've heard of him.
There's a few monthly retro gaming things out there, and I don't know if this is the person I'm thinking of. So,
he's a real nice guy. It's a pretty nice Facebook page. It's basically pick a game each month and play through it and talk on the website about it and such. It's a nice way to kind of harness our hobby, I guess.
That's pretty cool. I don't think this is the same group I'm thinking of then. But it's awesome that this podcast is branching out like that. I'm always very jealous of my friends around the world who grew up speaking 2 languages from a very, very young age. And in the U.S., they don't start... Well, maybe it's different now. I'm in my late 30s. But in the U.S., when I was growing up, they didn't start teaching you language until you were 12 or 13, when your brain's already, pretty far developed as far as basic learning skills go. And a lot of my friends around the world started learning 5, 6, 7 years old. And I've run into many people that only use English maybe once a year, but speak perfectly. I'm always very jealous of that. I tried to learn Mandarin Chinese when I was out in Taiwan for a while. And for the few months that I tried, it wasn't too painful, but certainly wasn't good at it. I couldn't have lived alone there. But I'm always jealous of that. I always wish I could speak more languages. Yeah,
but at least you speak English, though. You could have had a worse language.
True.
Everyone else speaks English, I mean. Also, for all of you listening, you might have picked up on this, but this is going to be kind of laid back. I have a little bit of structure and a couple of notes here, but I was at Metallica yesterday, so any structure that usually is in the podcast episodes is just out the window.
How was the show? What was it like?
It was awesome. It was really good.
They played a long time and everything, right? They usually play long sets. 2
hours and 15 minutes, I think.
That's awesome.
Actually, I can find the set list here. It was... actually, no, I'm not going to bother doing that. But it was a good set list. I'm not the biggest Metallica fan. They have a couple of songs that I think are pretty blech, but also a couple of songs I really like. And... luckily, there was most of the songs that I like there, though.
That's good. Metallica was my first concert ever. In 1996, we got tickets to a place called the Nassau Coliseum, which is a very large ice hockey rink in New York, out in Long Island. And, we were kids. This is really pre-internet. We had to call a department store that had a Ticketmaster inside it to get tickets. And we got there, and when I say we had the worst tickets, I'm not exaggerating. We were as high up as you could go. Our backs were up against the concrete walls, and it was our first concert. It was out of the 4 people, I think 3 of the 4's first concert ever. And I remember looking down when Corrosion of Conformity was playing when they opened up, kind of like, what's going on? Is this, that doesn't look like Metallica. Like, why can't I see? And all of a sudden, when, Corrosion of Conformity gets off, they played their opening, Metallica's opening, and the lights go down. And I see all of these people rushing the stage because it was seats and then general admission in the middle. So I grabbed one of my friends and I said, we gotta go. And two of them tried to chicken out, and we just grabbed all of them. We ran down, all these flights of stairs, got down to floor level, and these giant security guards are standing there trying to stop us from going in. And some big guy behind me, I was much lighter then, by the way, just picks me up and throws me over the security guard. Awesome. I landed in the side. My face is all bloody. I got up, I'm like, yeah! And then eventually I jumped into the pit during the song one when the strobe lights came on, so it was easy. Like, another security guard kind of grabbed me in my face like this, but I was able to scurry out. And by the end of one, I was pressed up against the fence right in front of James Hetfield. It was me, fence, and James. So I went from the worst seat that you could possibly get to right in front of the singer. So that set the bar for all of my concert experiences. Yeah. That was my first one ever, so there's been a lot of epic ones just because growing up, like, I thought that's what you did at concerts.
Yeah. So you've been the crazy guy on a lot of concerts then.
Yeah, it's always so much fun. I loved it. I think I've seen over 200 at this point, and I played at least 40 or 50 myself, so I love music.
Because, well, since you mentioned it, might as well touch on it. You play guitar, right?
Yeah, I've been in a bunch of bands over the years. I joined as famous as a band could be if they're still local. Like, they were that local band that could have gone places but never did. Yeah. And when my friend who was the lead guitarist in that reformed it, I joined that for a while and played some pretty high-profile gigs. And then started my own thing because I loved that so much. And then between my back injury and a bunch of other stuff that happened, that kind of went on hold. But I gotta start that up at least one more time. Finish the recording the second album that we had. Maybe play some more gigs. But it takes a lot to keep a band going. It takes a ton of money. It takes a lot of dedication and finding a group of people that are all on the same page, which is hard to do in any business. So.
Yeah, I picked up a guitar a few years ago myself, and I really enjoy playing it. I'm getting somewhat good. I wouldn't say quite really actually good, but getting close to good though. But like you, I have a little bit of trouble with my back, mostly my neck and my shoulder.
Oh yeah.
So, like, imagining myself in a position where I could actually tour and do a band, or actually commit to playing guitar more, it ain't gonna happen, unfortunately.
Yeah, I've had a lot of injuries over the years, mostly because I'm out of shape but kind of strong. So I would lift things, and I'm able to lift them, but I'm not in great shape. So everything else around me is bad. It messed my wrist up, messed my neck up. Found acupuncture is great for stuff like that. Medical acupuncture, not like light candles over it and stuff like that. Like, like the whole theory is that these tiny little needles go in and your body freaks out. Like my wrist, it cured my wrist. I wasn't able to, for like a year, if I was holding a glass, it could just fall out of my hand at any moment. And then I saw a whole bunch of people, and all of the little needles went in, and your body thinks, oh my God, something's wrong, and it sends all these white blood cells, and you pull the needles out when you're done, and like there isn't even any blood. Like, it heals in a day or two because they're so tiny, but your body still treats it, like something crazy is going on, and sends all these white blood cells. And a couple sessions, just a few sessions, and I was able to start playing guitar again. Was able to function normally. My wrist still hurts all the time, but at least I could function now. So try that for your neck. Definitely.
Yeah, I've tried it. Acupuncture is I'm a skeptic, but acupuncture I kind of see it works in some sense, but I have no faith in people who actually think that they know what they're doing when they do acupuncture. Because if you put a needle inside a person, who knows what's going to happen.
Well, the person that I went to approached it from like a physical therapy medical point of view. So he knew, all of your muscles. He knew the whole skeletal structure, where all your muscles tie together. So it wasn't just some random person that took a class online and stick some needles in you. It was somebody that was trained to know exactly where to put each needle for what reason and stuff like that. So I'm always a skeptic as well. And if I didn't meet this one person who explained it to me in this way, I kind of would have thought it was a farce as well. But hearing the medical explanation of how it works, and like when my threw my back out, I ruptured a disc. He was one of the first people I called. He gave me great advice, told me what to do, and I said, "Do you think I should come in for acupuncture?" And he goes, "No, it's not going to do anything." He goes, "Maybe come in anyway because it's not going to hurt, but no." Yeah. So at least he was honest about that. He wasn't trying to be the medicine healer, giving me some fake cure for everything. No, he was very honest. So.
I'm not gonna sit here and talk to you about my back pains because that's usually what I do anyways. Talk to my friends about how sad my life is. no, but it is what it is. It's a work in progress. But yeah, I've tried acupuncture. Might try it again. Right now I have a beard right in front of me, so I'm gonna open that up because that went places. So here in Norway it's 19:20 right now, so it's in the evening. It's Sunday, so I can have myself a beer.
I will join you. In a bit. I'm still finishing my morning coffee, and then I'll switch over to beer. Which beer are you drinking?
This is a weird one, actually. I just gotta have to tell you about this. The webcam isn't showing up for you, right?
No, it's not. So I guess just tell me the brand and the type, because I love beer. So
yeah, this is a weird one. This is a combination between a Norwegian cosmic black metal band and Belgian beer brewery.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it is. Norwegian black metal and Belgian beer craftsmanship. Two highly unique phenomenons brought together in order to create something extraordinary.
I thought it was going to say, in order to create something extreme.
Yeah.
That's what I would have guessed.
The weird thing, though, is I'm not really a beer person. I'm slowly getting there. But usually you could say that I would probably enjoy the band more than the beer. But in this case, it's quite the opposite. This beer is a beer you wouldn't think to be that good, but it's really great.
Yeah, I have a lot of respect for the whole Norwegian black metal scene. I really like I like how they paved the way for a lot of other bands to be able to do whatever they wanted, but it's just not my favorite style of music. So no disrespect when I say that. It's just I remember being a kid listening to all the rumors about all those bands and all the crazy things. I think I read Lords of Dogtown when it came out or something. The new movie isn't terrible either about that. So it's kind of funny to see that. But no, my favorite Megadeth is the reason why I play guitar at all. I absolutely love them. And In Flames, ever since I discovered them in 99 or 2000, a friend of mine, a big Cuban guy, was the one who introduced me to them, and that's been my favorite band ever since.
Yeah, I was gonna get to this, but might as well just skip to it. I've prepared a round of quick-fire questions to just run through, get to know you a little better.
Cool.
But okay, I'm just gonna skip to it actually, and we'll take a break when we get to the In Flames ones, and since I planned for you to answer In Flames on one of these. Okay, quick-fire round. Age?
38.
Are you a dog or a cat person?
Dog, but really neither.
Yeah, okay. What's your favorite food?
Ooh. Anything with a lot of cheese on it.
All right, I like that answer. Ideal place to go on vacation?
Anywhere right on the ocean. Anywhere in the world as long as it's right on the ocean.
Actually, speaking of that, have you ever considered going on the 70,000 tons of metal cruise?
I've never been on any cruise before, so yeah, I've just heard lots of horror stories about cruises, but I'd give anything a try as long as I had enough time and money to do it.
You've heard about it though, right?
Oh, of course, yes.
Yeah. Oh, I really need to get to travel there sometime. Maybe not this year, but next year. I will see. Okay, this is a question I assume you get a lot. But recommend me a place to visit if I ever visit New York.
So that's, there's a few things that I've done over the years that I think are kind of cool. And there's a few things that people make a big deal out of that I don't really think that they're as good as people say. So the one thing that I like to tell people, if you're looking for a relaxing way to kill 2 hours, like let's say you've walked around Manhattan for a couple of days and you're at the end of your trip and you're kind of tired, do the circle line cruise around the city. Because it's really long. It's that first hour goes by fast, and then the second hour feels like 3 hours. But if you're looking to just relax and have a really pretty view and see the city, that's great. You get views of the Statue of Liberty, of all the main buildings in the city, and all that. So that's cool if you want just like a laid back thing. And of course, if you're into the video games, there's a couple of places to hit depending on your needs. Like there's a few barcades, which are just bars with arcade machines, and the focus is on the bar. The arcade machines are like an afterthought. Those are fun. There's a couple of game stores like Video Games New York and J&L, and of course the Nintendo store, where you can see things that you don't really see anywhere else. And then if you're into like if you're really into collecting or getting good quality consoles, or especially if you're into King of Fighters 2002, take the journey all the way out to Brooklyn Video Games, which is kind of closer to Coney Island. And that place is awesome. I mean, it's small. Everything in New York is small. We have to jam everything into tiny little places, but all the prices are good. But they're the only game store I've ever seen that have a full RGB setup, a dual streaming rig for their King of Fighters Neo Geo consoles. It's pretty impressive if you're into that. If you're not really into RGB and getting the best out of your consoles and stuff, you'd probably have a better time just staying in Manhattan. But for gamers, those are really the things I always talk about. Go to those cool spots, and if you want a relaxing thing to do to chill out, do the Circle Line tour.
That's awesome. I probably would enjoy stepping into Brooklyn Video Games, I guess.
Yeah, you
Sounds
would.
Like a great
Without
place.
a shadow of a doubt, you would.
That's nice. All right, let's see. We got a couple of good ones here. Favorite console?
Super Nintendo, but Genesis is a very close second.
Yeah, barring having installed the triple bypass, I assume. Favorite game then?
It's tied between Super Metroid and A Link to the Past, but if I had to choose one, I'd pick Super Metroid, just because it's very easy to just get sucked into that game. You're all alone on an alien planet. Everything's trying to kill you. The music is amazing. The scenery is amazing. So if I had to pick one, it would be Super Metroid. But I love both of those.
Yeah. Oh man, I really wish that I was just a couple of years older, because I was born in '92.
Mm-hmm.
So I barely missed out on being old enough for the Super Nintendo. So I started with the Nintendo 64. And then as the years went on and I got a Game Boy, and I kind of started to develop a feel for the side-scrolling and 2D aspect of the gaming industry.
Mm-hmm.
I went back and tried a couple of Super Nintendo games, but I started to play Metroid when Metroid Prime came out, and that is my favorite game today, and Metroid is by far my favorite video game series. But there's a lot of quality of life improvements that the later Metroid games, particularly Metroid Fusion and Zero Mission, introduced, that I really miss when I go back to play Super Metroid, which is a damn shame actually, because that game I can see it so clearly that if I played that game when I was a kid, I would have absolutely loved it. But now it's a game I don't mind playing, but I don't love it.
No, I completely understand. It's I'm that way with a lot of the 8-bit and earlier games. And I got a Nintendo when I was a kid, and I loved all of the main titles. But going back at that, like, there are still games that are timeless that will always be amazing, whether it's the original Nintendo version or anything else. But certain games like Metroid, the original one, it was a groundbreaking game. It was absolutely phenomenal. It had all of the elements of everything that could make an amazing game. But after playing the rest of them, going back, for me, it's just, I would never play that again. I would always play Zero Mission instead, just because while it's amazing, there's so many little things about it that kind of drive me nuts.
Yeah, the original Metroid. Well, don't get me wrong, I'd rather play Super Metroid than both Metroid and Metroid 2, I'd say. But there's a couple of things that you can do to alleviate some of the issues. I recently played through the original Metroid. I got an EverDrive for my NES.
Oh,
and
cool.
I got the mother hack, and I added the start with 99 lives hack as well, which is great, because the worst thing about Metroid is dying and then having to grind the power-ups and health for 4 minutes.
Yeah.
It just kills any enjoyment you might get out of that game today.
Yeah, agreed.
So that is beautiful. That is really good, and it also changes like the blocks that actually is transparent, which you can roll through.
Mm-hmm.
In the original game, you can't really see where you're supposed to, or where you're able to roll into the wall. So changing that into a slightly different color is a huge improvement.
Yeah, there's a lot of little improvements like that. It just, and I'll go back and give it another shot. Maybe when I'm planning on upgrading my NES again with a new version of the bypass board that's coming out, or the NES RGB. I'm going to have that with a different board for the front loaders. That it kind of does a better job on audio and makes it so you don't have to cut it at all. So I'll do that eventually, and then maybe I'll go back and give that another shot with the same patches that you're talking about.
Yeah. I would absolutely recommend that. Also, since we're talking about it, I just got my EverDrive for my Game Boy Color.
Mm-hmm.
So I added the most recent, as far as I was able to figure out at least, the most recent colorization of Metroid 2. And that was really good. That's also a
I heard
game
they did a great job on that one.
Yeah, definitely. So that is one of the things. Well, the remake was good and all, but I much prefer the AM2R.
Oh yeah, me too. That's one of the best games that's come out. One of the best
amazing.
side-scrolling adventure games like that's come out in a long time. I'm really hoping that they figure out a way to easily port it to other platforms, like especially like the Raspberry Pi. Now that the Raspberry Pi 4 is out and it could do 4K, I'd love to see if it's able to run on something like that in Linux, because it's just, of course you could use it on a PC, but it's just kind of a pain for me to have my laptop hooked up to my TV, then, plug a controller into it. I'd rather have a dedicated gaming box, or especially if you could play it in 240p on an RGB monitor. I think that would be the best way, for at least for me personally, it would be the best way to experience it.
Yeah, because there is a way, right? If you set up a computer that is able to output 240p.
Yeah, I did it that way when the game first came out, and I think it was right before I got my BVM D32, and I keep trying to find time to go back and set up a PC and try to do widescreen 240p. So I think instead of 320 by 240, it would be 360 by 240. So essentially, it would be the same look as the Super Metroid style game, but fill the entire width without stretching. A true 16 by 9. I haven't tried it yet though, so I don't even know if that would work. But I've been talking about doing that for 2 years now, so maybe I should finally make the time to do it.
Yeah, that would be really cool, but at the same time, that's a lot of work just for pretty much one game.
Yeah, but I mean, that's one really great game.
Yeah, it is. It is. We might be getting a little bit technical here, but, well, I'm doing an interview with Bob from RetroRGB. Come on, guys. Actually, we were in the middle of a quickfire round here, so
sorry.
Let's... Least favorite console, then?
N64.
Oh, man.
Yeah,
It hurt my heart, man.
So think about it though, right? So when I was born in '81, and I saw the Atari. I never owned one until later on, but I saw what that was like. I owned my parents owned a Tandy 1000 computer. We used to play this game, Icon Quest for the Ring, where it's basically just squares that are different colors, and you got to really use your imagination. Like, your character is just a square, and you go into a new room that's a different color, and it's, oh wow, look at, and then you graduate to the NES, where it's the graphics were good, but you still had to use your imagination a lot. And then when you hit the 16-bit era, so much of that, you're never wondering what's on screen. You're always just playing the game, And now N64 comes out, and it's starting from the beginning again. So the first couple times I played something, it's like, well, what is that? Am I supposed to use that? Is that a glitch? Is that a weird thing in the camera? And stuff that doesn't happen in modern games. And, of course, the N64 had to pave the way, but I don't think those games aged as well as they could have.
Yeah, well, I absolutely see that perspective. And in some terms, I'm really happy that I grew up with it, because then I inherently excuse it for some of its shortcomings. And I'm able to look back at it with positive feelings, I guess you could say. Instead of, oh man, that was so rough. Which it was, obviously. Least favorite console. No, least favorite game.
There's so many bad games out there, I don't even think I could pick one. Sorry.
Yeah, just, okay. Well, if you don't pick one, I'll have to pick one.
I guess I could give you my least favorite game I've played this year.
Recently, yeah.
And it was Fox and Forests, because they basically, it seemed like they were marketing it to retro gamers, but the game itself, you had to, when you completed a level, you'd have to then go back and grind that same level 10 times in order to get every little secret out of it before you're allowed to move to the next part. And that should be something that's part of a reward system, not required. Yeah. You should be able to just beat the game, and then if you want, like in Super Mario Brothers, the new Super Mario Brothers, you could beat the whole game without collecting all the coins. But now if you love the game and you want a fun challenge, that should be an option, not required. Yep. So that one really bugged me.
Yeah, a lot of the rareware titles. Some of them don't, some of them do have this system where you progress through the game normally. Maybe you collect everything, maybe you don't, and then at the almost at the end of the game, there's this point where you need to go back and get all these things, or else you're not gonna get to the final boss.
Yeah, that's kind of annoying.
It is. It's fine though if you love the game, but it shouldn't be required. Well, I have a least favorite game. I'm not sure if you really played that much of a Wii. But Alone in the Dark, the remake or the reboot, I guess you could say, from Atari on the Wii. That's atrocious. That's horrible.
I've never played it.
Yeah, just out of morbid curiosity, just try it once. It's so bad.
The next time I'm testing a Wii for something, I'll fire that game up.
Yeah, it's. Oh god, I could talk for hours about how horrible that game is. Just one of the ridiculous aspects of it is there's a museum where you have to progress through, and there's this puzzle where there's a lot of lasers or security lasers that you could spray a fire extinguisher to kind of reveal where the laser is, and there's this corridor that there's a laser in, and you can't move forward. So me and my friends, we were stuck playing that part of the game, and then we just tried walking, and we walked straight through. So there's a laser that stops on the middle.
That's annoying.
And we were just trying to make sense of that, and it's a laser that stops on the middle. That's so stupid.
Yeah, weird.
Yeah, so that game is ridiculous. Okay, let's see. I have kind of this cheeky, funny, stupid last question, so it's probably not gonna land well. But okay, it's a joke. Since you're a New Yorker, can you confirm that the Ninja Turtles, are real?
So it's funny you say that, because there's a couple of stations that I used to have to transfer at all the time, and there was never a day that I was at those stations that I didn't see rats. So it's kind of funny when you start to see the other side of those things. Those Ninja Turtles cartoons made it seem like they made this awesome home in the sewer, kind of by the subway, and then you actually go down into the subways in the summertime, and it's as hot as you could imagine. Everybody's completely soaked through their clothes. There's rats everywhere. At least on not all the stations, but some of them. So I would have to go with no. There's definitely not Ninja Turtles down there, because the rats probably would have eaten them by now.
Oh man, well that's too bad. I recently joined your Discord,
Mm.
and that seems to be a lot of fun. I've got to try and spend more time there.
Surprisingly positive. Usually most of the online chat rooms like that go downhill really quick, and it hasn't. There's just a lot of really good people that hang out there. I'm very lucky.
Just to explain that one, you have Patreon, so do we, and it's only for your patrons, right?
Yeah, so anybody who's on any of the support platforms, whether it's just the join service on YouTube, Bitbacker, Subscribestar, or Patreon, or really anything, any new service that comes out, I'm going to sign up for, because I just want to make it easier for everybody else. But anybody who's part of that gets access to the weekly Q&As as well as the Discord server, and that's I'm trying to do more and more supporter-focused things as well. I'm going to really try my best to add more stuff like that. But yeah, it's been a really positive experience.
Yeah. What I was getting at was that I noticed you had one of the channels there called Beat It 2019.
Yes.
Which is something you and your friends from the Retro Roundtable started, right?
Correct, yeah. It's just a fun way to celebrate when you've beaten the game. You post pictures on whatever your favorite social media site is with, just the ending of the game. Try to make it spoiler free. I usually just have like the end, whenever there's the title card or something. Or if it's a really old game, of course. I mean, if it's a Super Nintendo game, everybody's seen the ending. But yeah, we just post that with hashtag #BeatIt2019 or whatever the year is. We started it last year. And it kind of started out as a play on words and a joke, but it really caught on because even people that don't know us at all were doing it, because it was just a fun way to celebrate when you've beaten the game without having to. I mean, just a fun way to do it. So you just post and people comment or they don't, but it's kind of a neat thing.
Yeah. Most retro games nowadays are not the easiest games to beat. So if you're not going to get shot by celebrating if you've beaten one of those games. I got reminded of that just because I was asking you about the Ninja Turtles thing, and I think I posted in that channel on the Discord after I beat it, but I recently replayed Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3 Radical Rescue on the Game Boy. I played that when I was a kid, and I remember beating it, and it kind of stuck in my mind as the hardest game I've ever beaten. Mostly just because of the boss rush before the final battle. So I posted that in there, and I was able to beat it last weekend, I think. So
that's cool.
Just passed along that challenge. So if you haven't played it, you really should, because it's kind of Metroidvania.
Oh, really?
It is, yeah. You wouldn't think so.
That's Turtles 3 for the Game Boy.
Yeah, which is a different one than the one that came for the NES, I think.
I'm glad you said that, because I just got actually, it's sitting right here next to me somewhere, but I just got the backlit screen from Ben Ven for the Game Boy Color. I don't know if you can really see that there, but I haven't installed it yet. That might be something I do later today. But cool. It takes, for anybody that's not aware, you could never backlight the Game Boy Color.
I remember.
You could front light it, and in my opinion, it doesn't look good. I'm sorry to offend people. There's a lot of people that get offended when I say that. They tell me they love theirs, but
I did
just
the front
don't like
light
it.
on my Game Boy Color. It's awful.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So I actually want to talk to you a little bit about that, because as you said, for the longest time there was no way of backlighting the Game Boy Color, and now suddenly there are two pretty good solutions, right? It's the Ben Ven and the MacWill.
I think there's three. I think there's also another person in the U.S. making them, and I get the impression they're all very similar to each other, if not the same thing. I'm wondering if Ben's design got copied and then some Asian seller is selling it to everybody else. McWill always makes his own stuff though, so I'm not sure where that came from, but it's kind of funny to see how that works. But yeah, I'm really interested to try it out, because it's supposed to be you basically just plug it in. And if you want to, you could add a couple wires to change brightness with the buttons. But if you just want to plug it in, it could be a plug-and-play thing where it should only be a few minutes to install. So I'd really like to check all that out, as well as there's a new glass screen that's designed specifically for it. And that's a tip that I would give anybody that's not even a nerdy tip, that when a friend of mine first showed me a Game Boy Advance where all they did was remove the plastic screen, just the thin piece of plastic, and put a glass cover over it, just by doing that made it so much easier to see and so much clearer. So that's a great tip for any handheld that has that. I think I have Game Gear, Game Boy, all of them. And the custom one for this fits this new LCD screen perfectly, because I believe this is just a hair smaller than the stock. So if you leave the original screen protector, you could see the metal of the screen, whereas if you put the new one, it looks like you would expect. Yeah,
that's one of the things that I have a friend he was actually going to join us today, but I think he got sick or something. He's kind of a stickler for details like this. So this replacement screen, it's a little bit smaller, meaning that if you keep the original screen bezel, it will be, you can see kind of a black border around the screen before the actual glass screen or the plastic screen's border is.
Yeah, you'll be able to see the metal of the screen itself. Which, I think a lot of people, when they heard that the screen was going to be smaller, I think a lot of people were turned off by that. But when you see it in person, it's not like if you saw it with the new glass screen on it, you'd be hard pressed to tell the difference in size between the original.
I mean, you could just move it about half a centimeter closer to your face, and the difference would be gone. So, but that's one of the things he was annoyed by. And then I told him, well, you can get the replacement bezel that has the smaller window. And then he was, but then I'll be reminded that the screen is smaller than it's supposed to be. Well, okay, fuck you then.
No, that's actually the opposite. So I get a little bit picky like that as well for certain things. For my favorites, like I wanted a blue Game Gear with a glass screen, but it had to be flat. It couldn't be that bubble screen that used to come on them. I get picky like that for my favorite things, and I understand. But I think when I've seen it with the glass screen on it, it has the opposite effect that he would think. It actually blends so well that it seems like it's the same size.
Yeah, even if I were prone to thinking like that, I would reserve judgment until I've actually seen one, I think. But yeah, anyways, what was it talking about? The Game Boy,
the Game Boy screen,
and
Turtles.
the Turtles, just try that game. It's really good. Good luck if you ever get to the boss rush mode, though.
I always hate that. I always just like the end of Cave Story when you have to beat all the bosses like that. I ended up never beating that game just because that ending part was so hard. But I played it on the Wii with the Wiimote on a flat screen TV that had 2 frames of lag-ish. So now that they redid Cave Story on the Genesis, I'm wondering if I play that on an RGB monitor with a wired controller, will I actually have no variable input latency? So I wonder if it'll be easier to beat.
Yeah, I tried to play that game. I burned a disc for my Dreamcast with Cave Story, but there was something wrong with it, so I still haven't gotten around to play that game. But it looks awesome, though.
Would you mind if we took like a 10-second break so I could grab a beer? I'll be right
no
back.
Problem.
And the game that you mentioned was Turtles 3 Radical Rescue, right?
Yeah.
All right, I just set that aside. I know it's you guys do a beer with every episode, so I will talk a little bit about mine. Let me pour it first so I don't spill it everywhere. I guess a couple of little backstories to this. First, when I moved to New York City, you start to realize very quickly that everything is way more expensive, and your variety sometimes goes down. So if you travel to one of the good liquor stores, you can get anything you want. But locally to me, there's basically just the cheap beers, which I'm fine with. And there's one store called Morton Williams, like a supermarket chain, that sells kind of the better beers. So this is the one that I found that's from Founders. It's a porter, 6.5% alcohol. And I really like it. It's, it's not I guess with German beer, and I believe with Belgian beer, you have to make it a certain way for it to count as beer. You can't put any extra flavors in it.
Okay.
And American beer is not like that. You can do whatever you want. Sometimes it's gross. Sometimes they put the same type of flavors that the pump coffee flavors, which but this is excellent. And I've always gotten into dark beers, I guess, because when I was a kid, I would drink Jägermeister was my favorite, but I would drink hard liquor. So I'd get like the little bottle, and that would be my thing at parties. And then when I became of age, because in the U.S. it's 21 before you're allowed to drink publicly, which is ridiculous. But
it's a bit much, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean it's a little weird, right? You don't walk around a bar holding a shot, and you don't do 20 shots a night, or I mean I'm sure I could, but like I don't want to. That's a bad hangover. Yeah. So I kind of forced myself to switch to beer, but it was always really bad beer, the light stuff. And one of my friends one day did that drink. I don't know what they call it in Norway, but it's when you take a shot of Jameson with a little head of Bailey's and you drop it into a half a glass of Guinness and you chug it.
So it's kind of like a Jaeger bomb, except
exactly
what you just described.
Yeah, so one of my friends loved doing that, and she taught me how to do it, and I kept beating her, and it would make her really angry because she taught me. And then one day, like I had the taste, and I just went, you know what? I think I'll just start drinking Guinness. And from there on, it's just gotten darker and darker and darker. So, cool. What's cheers in Norwegian?
Skål.
Score?
Skål.
Skål.
Skål, Bob.
Okay, I think I remembered that.
It's the same word for. They could be the same word for different things, I think. But
and isn't it the same thing in Swedish as well?
Yeah, I think yeah. When skål, the word means bowl, kind of. Doesn't really make sense, but a skål of breakfast cereal. There are other words probably. It's usually skål.
I did some work in Sweden when I was still doing IT stuff, and a few people from Norway came over to work, and it was funny to hear them talk because they'd have full conversations, and then they'd kind of look at each other, and then in English they'd say, "What do you call that?" And like the guy was holding up a hammer, and he's like, "We call it a." They're like, "Oh, we call it," but so many words were the same, and just a few differences.
Yeah, Swedish is strange. It's not really any equivalent for English-speaking people, I think. Well, if you go to Ireland, it's gonna be weird, I'm sure. But so that's probably the closest similarity, I guess. But it is weird. Yeah. One of the best examples I can think of is one time my father was. He's a huntsman, so he's doing like the sportsman huntsman things with dogs. And he was at a caravan park, with tents and then there was this guy. It was in Sweden, and this security guard comes up, and they were having a party, and he says, "You gotta keep it down." And then the funny thing is the word for calm in Norwegian is the same word for fun in Swedish. So my dad says, "Oh, calm down. It's gonna be chill now." And the security guard, he hears, "Now it's gonna get funny. Now this is when the party really kicks off." And
That's
then he
funny.
says, "If it's getting more roligt now, I'll call the cops." And my dad was like, "What? I was trying to chill down this guy."
That's funny.
Yeah, that's quite a lot of fun with these kinds of things. Let's see. I had one more question on the quickfire round, but I guess this is a fun one. This is actually a fun one, so I think we're gonna do a segment out of this one. What's the most obscure modification you've ever done to a console?
Oh, I mean, I don't even know. I've done so many weird things to consoles before just to see if it could be done.
Yeah.
Geez, I don't know. There's a long list of stuff. Because don't forget, I spend, for whatever you see on the podcast and whatever you see on the website, there's at least 10 times that behind the scenes testing, working with other people, There's been stuff that you do just to prove a test case. So there's been things that I would never show publicly because it's like a pile of glue holding 3 things together with 2 wires just to test how to speed up or slow down a CPU and a console. So there's a ton of stuff that I wouldn't even begin to answer that. I'm sorry. There's just so many weird things that I do every day.
I understand that. I absolutely understand that. I was we could focus a little bit on the N64 actually, because I was working on my dream case scenario for the N64 is a wireless controller with a fixed stick and so on, HDMI output, etc., etc. And I was kind of thinking about what would I need to do to make the controller wireless and so on. So I was at the NFG Games forums. Have you heard of those?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was there and I was checking out. It was in the heyday of when the N64 GameCube style stick replacements and the circuit board you could switch out with the ones that comes with them. And there was this other guy who was doing the wireless modification for the N64 controller, and I was testing the amperages on how much power was drawn from the actual joystick versus if you changed it out. And because of the way the Nintendo 64 joystick works, it's basically a light emitting diode, and then there's the wheel with the slots in, and then there's a receiver, basically. I'm not sure if it's a photoresistive diode or whatever, but it measures the amounts of time the beam between the emitter and the collector gets interrupted by the slots in the wheel. That's how you get the range on the N64. So that's pretty cool. So we figured out that just by the way that the N64 controller works, if you omitted that and changed it out with a potentiometer instead, just a regular GameCube stick, you would save quite a lot of battery life on a portable N64 controller.
Oh, that's pretty neat. The other thing I never liked about the N64 was the controller. And that's why when I see a bunch of, I forgot the name, but there was one company that's making all these new controllers, and they made one for the N64 that looks closer to like an Xbox style controller than anything else. I'd certainly like to revisit some of those games with that controller just to see what it's like.
Yeah, there's a lot of different options when it comes to the controllers. I mentioned the YouTube thing I was trying to do once. I had one episode there which took forever to make, so I've tried doing the things you do, so all the respect in the world to you, Bob. Seriously, it's a lot of work.
Yeah, the number one hurdle for me has been equipment, because every time you try to do something you realize you're at a wall. So you want to take really good footage of a CRT. You need a manual camera that could sync, you could sync it to the refresh rate. You need to know how to do manual settings. Then you need a computer and the software with the right processing power. Then you need the right microphone. So, and then you need to learn the tricks of software like Premiere. My friend Kenji, he kind of got me started, and then after maybe 6 months, I went over to his house. And I basically just showed him how I do the weekly podcast, and just very little things like, oh, you could hit the down arrow instead of doing that, or hit this key, and little tricks of the trade that he taught me that sped everything up. But everything else, once you get the right equipment, then it's just figuring out how to make the details work properly with each other. But that was always by far the biggest hurdle for me, was because I wish I had an infinite budget, but I got to do all these things as carefully as I can. So just being able to finally get most of the equipment, and I still have a lot of trouble with 4K. You kind of, for the stuff I do, I kind of need to do 4K now in order to keep up with some of the big players. So I get the camera equipment for it, I have the capture equipment for it, but editing in 4K is a nightmare, and I'm about to drop an obscene amount of money on a computer that could process all of this stuff.
Yeah, I've just recently been trying to get my computer and the workflow to work with 1080p and 60 frames. So imagining just jumping it up to 4K it makes my skin crawl.
I mean, in many cases, it won't work. Like even just 4K footage from my Panasonic GH5 camera. So 4K from other stuff seems to work fine, but that's really high quality footage. That's a high bit rate. So just putting that into either one of my computers, like you can't hit play and watch it, even if you do the lowest quality settings. You actually would have to go in and do a proxy edit, which that takes forever too. So it's at the point where if I want to do anything in 4K at all, I got to upgrade. It's frustrating.
Yeah. All right, let's retrace our steps a little bit. I was that video I was talking about. I was basically trying to compare all the different solutions for improving the Nintendo 64 joystick experience. And I'm not going to go into full detail about this right now, but it's a good example of the kind of technical barrier that separates the retro game interested guy from the ones who know how to deal with these technical difficulties. And it's very important to kind of bridge that gap, and that is the thing that I think you do better than pretty much anyone, except for maybe My Life in Gaming guys. But at the same time, those guys they spend like an hour on each video, and it's what it takes, but it's a lot of time for anyone who's not really sure what this is all about to spend.
Absolutely, and don't forget too that videos are the main focus of what they do. So and they hold themselves to a very high standard. So all of those videos that they put out are going to be thorough, and they're going to be the best at their ability at that time. Everybody gets better as time goes on, but each one of their videos is the best they can do at that moment. And I respect them for it. I love it. Sometimes I wish that I had the time to spend to put that much more detail into mine, but I also love the variety of work I get to do. So I'm okay being trying to catch up to them, but not equaling.
Yeah, cool. The exact example that I was going to bring up was the Nintendo GameCube style replacement stick for the Nintendo 64.
Yeah, they did a great job on that.
Yeah, I don't really remember their video on it. And I'm not really sure they touch. I think actually I might be humble bragging a little bit here, but I'm not sure they knew about the same thing that I covered in my video. But the GameCube sticks, they have software on the chip there, which converts the potentiometer output to whatever the Nintendo 64 circuitry expects or reads. And that software is not good.
I was really interested in that in their video, because they showed great demonstrations on how the analog stick wasn't as responsive and didn't have as full a range of motion. Yeah. And I was wondering why, and I guess that's the answer then. The software written to convert it is.
And I mentioned earlier the NFG Games forums. There's this guy here that he's called Micro, I think he's from Sweden. He designed a circuit board which you could order from him. It costs maybe twice as much as the GameCube stick itself. And then it's an easy install. I think you actually need to remove the joystick compartment as well, because the potentiometers on the replacement sticks are kind of off spec as to what the traveling distance of the joystick actually is. So it doesn't give you the full range. But yeah, that's pretty much what you get though. He hasn't made it publicly available yet. You need to kind of pay attention on the forums, and it's been quite a few years since I bought this. But I covered. Whoa, yeah. Hello, New York.
Yeah, sorry.
It's no problem. Let's see, where was I? There was this replacement circuit board, and it's a kit basically, which you can combine with GameCube style replacement sticks that you get off eBay, and it pretty much improves the entire sensitivity issue. And those, if you modify the GameCube sticks, it's awesome. it's pretty much the best solution I was able to come up with at the time.
That's really cool. And could that be implemented into some of these other different shaped third-party controllers?
Yeah, that is what I'm really interested in, because those popped up after I finished up my video. Like the Brawler 64 and the RetroBit controller, which looks like the Hori controller. I haven't seen any videos running the benchmark software of those, so I kind of feel like I need to do the video again, but at the same time I remember spending like countless hours on it, so I'm probably not going to do that.
I'd like to see input latency tests between all that equipment as well. You know, how much input latency from just the stock N64 controller versus all those other solutions.
Yeah, that could be interesting, because there's a lot of videos on YouTube that covers it, but none of those that I can find actually delves into the technical side of things.
Yeah, most stuff on YouTube is like that. Most stuff is just people telling their opinions with no factual basis at all.
That's why I'm sad to hear that you don't care about the 64.
Well, I mean, it's not that I don't care about it. It's just my least favorite system out of all of them. So
one of the things that makes it my favorite actually is the fact that there's so much fun stuff to do when it comes to modifying it and trying to fix its shortcomings.
Yeah, the Ultra HDMI mod is the number one HDMI mod of any console.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, obviously, if your favorite console's Dreamcast, you would you'd want the DC HDMI, and vice versa. But that Ultra HDMI allows you to do things with an N64 that I didn't think was possible. And it's completely digital to digital. There's no conversion there. It's cheap considering what you're getting. It's actually very expensive, but if you're thinking about what it is that you're getting, the technology that's on the board, how much it costs to make the board, and what it does to your N64, it's incredible. So that is absolutely the way to go. If you play N64 on a flat screen and it's your favorite console or one of your favorite consoles, that's the only solution in my opinion. Doesn't add any lag, any perceivable lag at least, and all of this stuff could be measured, of course. And I mean, it's awesome. All of the things that it could do.
Well, I think it's the same thing as the GBI, because it has a direct mode as well. There's one mode that is HDMI compliant and all that, but there's also a DVI direct mode, I think, which clocks it to the system speed. Oh, that's right. Speaking of the GBI, Jason from GameTech just sent me an email saying the GBA consolizer kit is on the way.
That is awesome.
That is really awesome.
That's my favorite way to play any kind of older Game Boy game on a flat screen. And in fact, whenever we're done with this, I'm going to go fire up Turtles 3 through my Game Boy Advance consolizer and play it just to see what that's like.
Oh, my mission here is complete. Speaking of, I could probably sit here and chat to you for hours. But do you have anything to do? It's Sunday, so it's like.
I mean, I work 7 days a week, so as soon as I finish this, I have a large pile. I don't know if anybody can see in the video, but I have a stack of stuff there. I mean, even if somehow I was able to press pause on life, it would be months of catching up with work. So, I'll definitely hang on the podcast a little longer. But I'm always swamped, and I love it. I love having so much fun stuff to do, but it is a little overwhelming sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. You never get around to doing all the things you want to do.
I never get to play games.
That's the most important part of it, actually. Since I started my YouTube Let's Play channel with my friends 4 years ago, I think. And we've just been expanding and doing more stuff with that. And then half a year ago, I was asked to join this podcast, which is quite an honor, actually, because this podcast is one of the most esteemed retro gaming podcasts in Norway, or at least in the community here.
Awesome, congrats.
Yeah, thanks. I was kind of shocked about that, but here we are. Also, it's really cool. I just got to thank you again for actually coming on and doing this interview with me.
Oh, of course. We've exchanged emails for a while now. I'm happy to go on. It's always fun to talk about stuff I'm working on too. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, I've been in touch with you probably more than you realize. I have my component switch is yours.
Really?
Yeah, I bought it from you. The Audio Authority.
The Audio Authority one,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. That is very funny. You know, that I get that a lot. I was just hanging out with Christoph, one of the creators of the DC HDMI, and we were walking around the city, having a few beers, just kind of hanging out, showing him all the game stores, and he said, I bought one of your boards a while back. I went, oh yeah, that's neat, and he told me a story about, I guess his got lost in the mail, so I sent him another one, and it was just kind of funny to see that I've been talking to some people for years now that I didn't even realize.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't. I feel like with you and the Retro Roundtable and etc., I kind of don't have much to bring to the table in terms of I've been dabbling a little bit with the technical stuff since the dawn of time almost, but I don't really have any products to like. Hey, look at this! This is why I should be in the conversation with you guys. So I've been on the verge and like just paying attention and trying to keep the people I can keep informed about what's going on in the retro gaming world in terms of the technical stuff.
Yeah, and if you have anything to share, always feel free to contact any of the writers. The only suggestion I would have is if you have something that one of the writers is more of an expert on, contact them, because it's I try to give everything a fair amount of time, but it just if I'm not an expert in something, I'll do my best to do a write up. But like a lot of the older computer stuff like MSX and Commodore 64, I'll usually ask Vanessa to do the write up because she knows so much more about that stuff than me. And like arcade stuff, I ask Smoke Monster to do, and I usually bug recommend in the rare moment that I find anything software related before he does. He's usually he's got the finger on the button for stuff like that. So it's cool. I would just anything that you have to share with the community, we're always happy to promote it. And that's kind of what RetroRGB's always been about. Is even in the beginning, I was always bragging about how I was using other people's mods. I never tried to pretend any of this stuff was mine. Some stuff I did figure out on my own. I'm sure other people were doing it too. But whenever there was a new mod or a new thing to talk about, I was always so happy to bring that public and to talk about the people doing it. So anybody that's got anything that you think would make a difference, never hesitate to reach out.
Yeah, I definitely will. I have a friend who's really into collecting prototype games and particularly Diablo development discs.
Oh, really?
And recently he got a hold of. I know you like Game Boy Advance quite a lot, so I shared it on the Discord. I'm not sure you saw it, but there was he got a hold of 3 development systems for the Game Boy Advance.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, that was really cool. It was, and he sent one to me because there wasn't there was a battery slot, but there wasn't any the prongs which springs onto the batteries, I guess you could say. There was this cable that came out. One red wire, one black wire, which is obviously the voltage from the batteries. So he wanted to just boot it up, and I helped him with that, which wasn't much of a problem. It's just adding voltage to it. And the cool thing about that was when you turned it on, the BIOS or the melody that played when the Game Boy logo came up, it was different.
Oh wow, really?
Yeah, it was really cool. That's
pretty neat.
If you Google it, I think you could find a video on YouTube, because I tried to send it to the Discord and it wouldn't let me send videos. But that was really cool. And I tried to talk to Tian Feng, I think, on the Discord about that. Yeah, I was trying to figure out what the 2 other cables from the development system was. It was one that went to FIQ test point on the console, and one that went to the reset line. So who knows, it probably plugged inside of a bigger development unit or something. But
probably, yeah.
What I was getting at was just that was one of the cool things that could be cool to add to a wiki or something.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really looking forward to getting the wiki public.
Yeah.
It's actually something that's been worked on actively behind the scenes. But before we make it public, we want to make sure that the backbone is perfect. So obviously, I'm not going to wait for the wiki to be perfect because it would never be released. But just the backbone, so that when people start adding and contributing, there's no surprises. We know how it works. We know what to expect. And that's coming along great. That should be. I mean, I hate to put a time limit on it, but it should be by the end of the year that it's fully open to the public, and that we could even start allowing people, if they want to move stuff off of their wiki onto this, because this is going to be supported for a long time. The end goal is to make it not for profit, so it's like kind of like Wikipedia, so that it'll have fast and good hosting forever. That's the goal, at least.
Yeah, that is one of the things you're working on that I think is extremely commendable, because we had the best example ever of how fragile these things are when the Assembler Games forums just went down.
But while forums are so helpful and things like that, I think they're one of the worst ways of archiving information.
That's
because there's just so many times that you have to go back to one post from 3 years ago, and I think having a public wiki that's not about the whole point of making it a not-for-profit, just a public thing, is that you could disagree with all of the people who are involved with it. You could not like them, and that's totally fine, because that won't affect any of your content, because it's just the facts. There's going to be no, opinions will be on RetroRGB.com, but all the facts are going to be there. So even if you don't like me or you don't like any of the stuff that I do, you can still post your content there, knowing it's never going to be messed with. It's going to be, just like Wikipedia, just a group collaborative effort to archive the best info.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm looking forward to see how that works out.
Thank you.
Also, I'm kind of planning to close this off, but I was going to ask you, as part of the quickfire, favorite band and such. But I skipped across that because, we talked about it a little earlier. But In Flames, what do you think about
100%.
them? Yeah.
Absolutely love them. The friend that introduced me to them, one of the tips that he gave me, because I'd always listen to more straightforward metal. I'd listen to crazy stuff every now and then, but he just reminded me that with stuff like that, pretend that the screaming is another instrument.
Yeah.
So, and that's kind of what I always did with Slayer and Pantera and stuff like that, but I never thought of it that way. And when he as soon as he said that, I think the song Suburban Me off of Clayman, I don't know why, but that song just hit me. And then, it was at the time of Napster, so I downloaded everything that they had, and then I've been a diehard fan since. I've bought every album. I've seen them 26 times live, bought t-shirts, bought the DVDs, so I don't feel the slightest bit bad about stealing their first 3 albums.
Yeah, no problem there.
But yeah, it's that blend of really heavy music with good melodies, and how Jesper used to do the palm muting is something that I don't mean to nerd out on guitar stuff, but it's part of. He uses the guitar as percussion as well, which is something Gabriella from Rodrigo Gabriela, she's probably one of the best in the world that does that. But I always loved approaching guitar like that, While I do play lead in the band 2 weeks, my favorite is playing rhythm. And in some of the other bands that I've been in, I would use techniques like that, especially under guitar solos, to enhance the way the solo sounded.
Yeah.
And one of my friends, he even made a comment one day, why does the solo sound better? Did you record it different? I went, no. It's because I changed the way I pick, and I add the percussion when you're doing the low parts, and it's something that I guess everybody's ears hear different things, and that's what my ears always went to, and they always did stuff like that amazing. And then I've liked every one of their albums too. I've had stuff that I like more than others, but it's just very happy with all their music, and they're really good people too. I've met them a few times.
Oh, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've never had the pleasure of meeting them. I've seen them live a couple of times, back in Metal Town in Göteborg, their hometown. That was usually pretty good concerts. they're playing on their home turf and such.
Yeah, when I was in Gothenburg, I tried everything to be there for one of their shows. And just the way my work schedule was at the time, I was in Asia the day they played, and I flew directly to it and missed it. But they said they played out in this giant pier, and they said during Only for the Week, when everybody was jumping up and down, the people that were in the back said, "You were there?"
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so jealous. I was trying everything to be at that show, and they said the pier was
yeah,
was
and it's no
wobbling
joke.
and
It's no joke. The pier is giant. It's massive. So the fact that people can tell that story and someone can confirm that actually happened, they made thousands of people jump up and down at the same time, making thousands of tons of concrete actually move. It's insane. That's absolutely
incredible.
Crazy. Yeah, that was definitely one of the highlights.
I drove by that pier, when I got there, and I was able to kind of check it out and everything. I was so disappointed that I missed that show, but even the people that I were working with at the hospital, a few of them were there too, and they, those are the ones that told me the story about the pier moving, and I was very jealous. I really wanted to make that happen.
Yeah. One of the other highlights I just gonna mention was when Slipknot played. I don't think it was that year, but maybe the subsequent years, I think. Slipknot was there, and what song is it? It's the one where the song goes kind of mellow, and they tell everyone in the crowd to get down on their crouch down, and then it goes and then jump the fuck up, and everyone jumps up. And then there's a little delay because the people on the left side jumps up before the people on the right side. And then the entire crowd is basically standing horizontally. That was awesome.
Oh, that's great.
That felt weird, being at a Slipknot concert, 90 degrees tilted. That was weird. That's funny. Also, I got one of the drumsticks from Clown. When they played the percussion part of The Blister Exists. That was awesome. I still have that. Play Guitar Hero with it. Okay, I think actually we're gonna close this off. This was absolutely awesome, Bob. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Oh man, this was really cool.
Thank you. Yeah, so I mean, let's definitely, hopefully I could follow up and do this again next year or something. Maybe after the wiki's up, we'll do a follow up or something like that.
Yeah, I would love that. I'll be sure to let you know if I can think of something that would be, mutually beneficial, I think, or just hang out and chat something.
And if anybody wants to find me, I'm just at RetroRGB on everything. So whether it's Patreon or YouTube, Twitter, whatever, it's always just at RetroRGB.
Yeah, and if you got anything else you wanted to pitch, now's the time, I guess.
No, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, cool. Well, that's it for this podcast, I guess. Thank you so much to Bob. And, this podcast is on a summer break right now, so we're probably going to be back next week or the week after with a review, maybe a spoiler review for Stranger Things Season 3, which was absolutely awesome. Other than that, we'll be back in action by the end of August, I think. Maybe. No promises. That's all for this week. Happy summer to everyone, and I will see you later.
Take care.